Here's a layer sample, and I'm going to pull up my layers panel by going to the window, layers, and there's the layer panel. If you notice, we have 4 objects: a star, triangle, circle, and a square on a white background. In the layers panel, notice that each object has its own individual layer. The visibility of layers goes from the top down. The background, or the bottom layer on the layers panel, is the bottom of the stack working its way up. In this case, the star is on the top. As you can see from a visibility point of view, the entire star is visible. It overlaps slightly to the triangle below that, which overlaps slightly to the circle below that, which is overlapping the square. If you want to change the order of the visibility, not the visibility, but the order of the stack, simply highlight a layer. In this case, we'll highlight the circle, click on the layer, and drag it up or down. In this case, we'll start by moving down. Notice that the circle is now below the square. If we go all the way up to the top with it, now the circle is at the top and above all of the other objects. Alright, if you want to move 2 layers at a time up and down, take the second layer that you would wish to move. In this case, let's move the circle and the triangle down to the bottom. I'm going to hold down the command on a Mac, Control PC key, and click the triangle layer. And now we've highlighted 2 layers. If I drag them down till I get the line below the square, release, and now you can see that the triangle is at the very bottom, overlapped by all the other objects, and the circle is right above it. If we wanted to move them to the top, click and drag them together, up and release, and now they are at the top. Alright, to move any layer around in your image, make sure that layer that you want to move is highlighted. Highlight your Move tool in the toolbox and simply click and drag your layer wherever you want to. If we wanted to move the star, we highlight that layer and make the layer active and move it around. Active layers indicated by the colored layer itself. To turn a layer's visibility on or off, you simply click these eye icons to the left of the layer thumbnail. If we wanted to turn off the triangle, we just click the eye and it's turned off. Does not remove the layer, it just turned it off. We want to turn it back on. We'll turn off also the square. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about layer styles briefly. They're under the layer menu, layer style. Here's a whole list. Also can be accessed at the bottom of your layers panel under the effects icon. In this case, let's start and show you a drop shadow. Here's the panel that pops up showing you all of, in the left column here, available layer styles. In this case, the drop shadow is highlighted and checked as the one we're working with. Always have to remember which layer is activated, the most important thing in layers. Okay, drop shadow on the circle layer. We'll move the distance, so move the shadow out away from the circle, change the size to soften it, drop the opacity down just a little bit, leave the layer blend mode at normal. And I just wanted to show you that to adjust the direction of the light, see where it says angle and see the circle with a pointer. The pointer indicates where the light is coming from, not going to. So the pointer right now is to the upper left, which means the light is coming from the upper left to the lower right, as you see that the shadow is according. If I move it around to the hard left, you notice that the shadow is cast to the right. Let's go back up to a 3/4 angle. You can also type in the precise degree angle you wish on a 360-degree globe. You can also, let's just show you one other thing, a bevel and emboss. We'll put a second effect on here. Inner bevel I'm going to choose, and I'm going to play with the size. Notice how we now are getting a bevel three-dimensional object. And let's see if we change the depth. Changes that. Soften it. Let's make the technique more of a chisel to give a sharp edge right there. And there you have a beveled circle, which is now three-dimensional. You can also control your highlight. Notice the opacity level on the upper left of the circle and the shadow on the lower right side of the circle. Not the drop shadow, but the shadow cast by the light on the three-dimensional object we have just created. Let's make that a normal blend. Up it just a little. There we go. You can also work with contours for bevel emboss. Let me show you this. You pop up this menu, you have a choice of algorithms. If we hit this one in particular here, we now have what looks like a plate. I'll click OK on that, and notice that our effects appeared in the layer we were working on underneath the layer itself as effects and sub as a drop shadow and bevel emboss. If you want to turn all of the effects off, simply click the eye. If you want to turn off an individual effect that you've created, click its appropriate eye. Well, let's turn off the drop shadow. See? If you want to alter an effect, double click the effect. Back up comes the window. Let's change the size of our plate. Soften it just a little bit. Click OK, and again it is changed non-destructively back into your layers panel. Alright, now let's talk about moving a layer from one image to another. I'm going to create a new blank image, 6 by 6 at 100 dpi. We're going to change the resolution. I'll show you in a moment what I've done. The image on the left is 6 inches by 6 inches at 100 dpi. The image on the right is 6 inches by 6 inches at 300 dpi. I'm going to turn on the rulers for both of these images so you can see what I'm talking about. Command or Control on a PC, the letter R, we have rulers. Same over here, Command R. We'll black them. This is 100%, that's 33. To move a layer from one image to another, click the layer that's active or non-active. Just click. In this case, let's move the star. We'll just click and drag and drop. And notice how the star came in much larger than it was in the other image. That's because the image at the left is only 100 dpi and the image on the right is 300 dpi. So you have to remember when you're moving things from one image to another that the image, the layer is resolution dependent. Let's do a Command Z here and go back and show you another way to move a layer. In this case, we'll move the circle. And instead of moving this layer, we're just going to click directly inside the image. The layer is highlighted. Click, drag, drop, and the circle comes in. Again, large because of the resolution difference, but notice that all of the effects came with it exactly as they were in the other image. Okay? Now I'm going to delete that layer, go back here, and show you one more methodology. Let's work with the green triangle. We're going to load the selection. Two ways to load a selection of a layer. Go load selection when the source comes up. In this case, it would be the layer transparency. It loads the triangular selection. Or in your layers panel, with a command on a Mac, control on a PC, click on the appropriate thumbnail of the layer and it loads that layer selection. So now we can, since the triangular layer is highlighted, go Command or Control C to copy, highlight our new window, go Command or Control V to paste, and the layer comes in. Okay? Let's show you one more time with the circle how that works. Command or Control on a PC, click the thumbnail, copy, and paste. But when you copy and paste, you notice it only brought in the actual layer, not the effects. They only come over if you drag them directly, layer and drop, and then you get the effects. Okay? So there you have a simple lesson in layers. Let me show you a real-world example. We have a flower, we have another flower photo, and let's get rid of this one, and I'll quickly run through this entirety. Here's how to make a composite and use layers. We have this flower image right here. I'm going to put it against a gray background. Whoops, wrong image. So, and in our layers panel, you notice we have the layer and we have a background that's white. I like the image, it's not bad, but we have a little distraction on the upper right hand corner here of a red flower. I'd like to see something else to fill in this area over here and make the composition more pleasing. So, we have a nice flower here. I would like to move that flower into the right hand image, alter its size, change its color, and put it behind this pair of red flowers. This is how we do this. Pull up the Channels panel. I've already pre-selected the rows, and the way you get the selection is to go Command on a Mac, Control PC, click the channel. Notice we selected the flower. Now I will just drag the flower and drop it into the other image. Bingo. One way of moving the layer. Go Command Z. The other way would have been to Command or Control C, copy, highlight the new image, Command or Control V for paste, and there's your image. Now, the flowers, we're going to close out the other flower. We don't need that anymore. Now we have the flower layer, but it's too large. So what we want to do is select the flower, Command or Control on a PC, click the thumbnail. We have a selection. Command or Control T gives you free transform. If you hold your Shift key, it will maintain the proportions. We're going to click and drag down and make that flower smaller and move it upwards. Come on. In the image. That's not bad. Let's rotate it a little. When you come outside the transform box, notice that the cursor turns to a curved arrow, so we can just rotate the image and reposition it. Still a little bit too big, so holding the Shift key, we're going to make it a little smaller. That looks pretty good. I'll click OK. Move it around a little bit, deselect. We need to do one thing, I think, to this flower. I forgot. Let me show you. We'll zoom it up, and I want to turn off the layer 1. Notice that we have some artifacts we picked up on the edging when we copied and pasted this in, because it was against a black background and we had feathered one. We got a little line of black. So we're going to remove that. I'll show you how to do that. Command or Control on a PC, click the layer thumbnail, load the selection, go to your Select menu, go to Refine Edge. Now you'll see a quick mask. I have it quick mask with a blue background. You can see the edge. And let's go for the default back here. Our selection is just beyond, as you see, the black edge. So what we're going to do is just contract the selection to bring it inward. Notice how the black edge got a little bit covered by the blue, and now we're pretty much just inside of that black edge. We'll click OK. As you can see, the crawling ants have moved inward. Now, we're going to zoom out. What I want to do is I'm going to invert the selection. Select Inverse, show you with quick mask that now the flower is blocked, the rest of the image is active. So we are going to delete on that layer and I'm going to hide the crawling ants, Command H, and watch the edge. It just went away. I hit it a second time. The reason that occurred is because that the actual, let's back it up too to show you. I want to save this selection. Select Save Selection as a channel. And there it is, and I want to show you the channel. I'm going to hide the crawling ants, highlight the channel, and zoom up. Notice that we have a slightly soft edge around here in the selection. And what that does, load the selection, go back to RGB, hide the, I'm not even going to hide the crawling ants. When I delete, it's going to delete and push slightly into that soft edge because of the feather, and remove the dark edge. We click a second time, it'll push a little further in. And now we have a perfectly clean flower edge. We can turn back on the other layer. See how beautifully it meshes now? And when we zoom up, the edge is still a little soft, doesn't look like it was pasted. Move that around. Now, we want to make this flower go behind the other red flowers. So let's, if you see here in the alpha channels, I pre-selected the red flower on the layer 1. We'll load it, Command or Control, click the alpha channel, and highlight the background, or let's hide this flower, and highlight that layer with the main image. I will go Command or Control C to copy, Command or Control V to paste. It will create a new layer that is right above the active layer. So I'm going to make the active layer now layer 2, which is the flower, which we'll go ahead and turn on. And when I paste, Command or Control V, notice a layer came up above the active layer. That's the way layers always come in. When you create a new layer, it always appears right above the active layer. Let's Command Z, and I'm going to go back to layer 1 as the active layer and paste. Notice that nothing appeared to change. Let me turn off the main one. There's the flower pasted in a layer above the layer that was active. So now if we want to move it above the flower, on the right we click and drag it upwards and drop, and now it appears that we have the image with the flower behind it. Let me turn off the flower, both of the flowers. I want to clean up the background layer here, the main layer, take out the red, highlight the layer, highlight my rubber stamp tool at opacity of 100%, option to source, and just paint away the background area. I want to reproduce a little of this, just make it look real. Okay. I also don't like this bud here. Now if I turn on that flower, you don't see anything, but see here the bud will appear behind the new flower. So we're still on that active main layer. Again, rubber stamp, we'll source over here and we'll paint away that bud, and we're not going to worry about catching a little of the flower's petals. I'm also going to do this piece of greenery because it was distracting. When we turn on the pasted flower, it covers things back up. We'll turn on the new flower, it is behind. The only thing I would like to do now is change the color of that flower. So we'll highlight that layer, select it by Command or Control PC, click the thumbnail, go down to our adjustment layers to a hue saturation layer, change the hue of the flower to become yellow. That's pretty nice. Notice that also the adjustment layer came in immediately above the layer that we were working on. It also came in with a layer mask because we had the selection of the flower, so that the hue saturation layer only affects that flower. We are now going to go back, highlight the flower, and load the selection again. Command or Control, click the thumbnail. I'm going to make a curves adjustment just to snap the contrast a little on the flower. Put a point in the gray, neutral gray, put a point in the shadows and pull it down just a little. You don't notice anything yet. I'll show you why. Because the curves resides below the hue saturation. We see a little effect on the flower down in the shadow area, but we'll see more if we move the curves layer, click and drag above the hue saturation. Watch what happens. See that? Now we have the flower in a nice exposure with good shadow. Let me zoom out one time. And there you have a composite made by moving a layer from one image to another, changing the order of layers, and putting adjustment layers and repositioning them in the layer stack. A complete lesson in layers and compositing.